It's a sad reality that the ocean often reveals things that simply don't belong there. Whether it's objects carelessly discarded by humans or bizarre formations created by nature, some underwater discoveries leave you staring in disbelief, thinking, seriously? With that in mind, here are 20 of the creepiest things recently found beneath the waves. Number 20. Zemchug Canyon. As you hopefully know by now, the oceans have a wide array of not only life but also structures, especially natural structures that have formed over a great deal of time. This includes canyons, massive fissures within the depths that are much grander than you may expect, key amongst them being the Zemchug Canyon. It's deeper than the Grand Canyon at 2.6 kilometers deep and is the largest submarine canyon in the entire world, based on the drainage area and the volume. Deep, cold, oxygen-rich waters wallop from the depths into the canyon, providing sustenance to an enormous array of variety of life forms. So, not only is it big and deep, but creatures love to live there, which is not creepy at all. Number 19. Cleopatra's Palace. Cleopatra was one of the most important figures, not just in Egyptian history, but in the history of the entire world. She's one of the greatest female rulers of all time by a wide margin, and there are many things of hers that have been lost to history, not the least of which was her tomb. But another thing that was originally lost after her passing was Cleopatra's Palace, which was believed to be on the sunken island of Antikythera. French archaeologist Frank Gaudiot was the man who led the search for the island and the palace, and by the year 1998 he had discovered it, and within it were many a great artifact that had not been seen for some 2,000 years. As for how the island was sunk, some think that it was a mixture of an earthquake and a tsunami at the same time. Number 18. Black smokestacks. Smoke is another thing that you wouldn't expect to see underwater. After all, that requires things that aren't underwater 99% of the time, so when you usually see smoke it's likely just dirt from the ocean floor being pushed by something like the current or even an animal. However, back in 1977 some scientists were researching the Galapagos Islands and wanted to have a look at the temperature anomaly that they had picked up. When they got to where the source was, well, let's just say that they were shocked at what they found. Plumes of black, superheated, and mineral-laden water billowing out of chimneys that projected up from the sea floor to the height of a 10-story building. That means that these black smokestacks were going over 30 meters, 100 feet, up from the vents, and that's definitely not something you see every day. While the discovery of the smoke was indeed shocking, the main thing you need to know here is that this was the very first discovery of hydrothermal vents. Yes, indeed, and the reason that these were found at all was because they just so happened to be in a submarine that was about 2,400 meters, 8,000 feet below sea level. These vents are basically connected to the Earth's core, and as a result the water that they can shoot out is over 350 degrees Celsius, 662 degrees Fahrenheit, which, as you don't know, is really super hot. Yet it doesn't boil, ironically enough. However, you still don't want to touch it. Regardless, while this was a very major discovery, one can only truly imagine what those scientists were thinking when they saw this vent and the massive black plumes that came from it. It was very much something that no one had seen at that time before. Number 17. Sunken City of Baia. Now, if you want another sunken city tale, I have one for you, but this time around I'm going all the way back to the Roman Empire, because during that time the city of Baia was around, but it wasn't only a city, it was basically a resort for the elite of the time. And by elite, I don't only mean the rich, I mean the corrupt. The amount of hedonism that was said to have come from this place was a whole lot. Eventually, though, people left it behind, and that's when Mother Nature took over, and as the area of the city was in had a lot of volcanic activity, that is indeed what brought the city low, or should I say submerged. Either way, this place of sin is probably in its best place, sitting beneath the wave. Number 16. The Great Blue Hole. This spot, or Great Blue Hole, is a place that many people love to go and traverse and believe, because both above and below there are a lot of things to see, which includes a variety of sharks in regards to the non-lethal ones, and the fact that this place is a giant sinkhole that eventually created the spot that you see now. Now, yes, indeed, this hole that people swim in and animals live in is actually a sinkhole. It's nature's way of changing things up a little bit. You also can't deny that it does have a visual look to it that makes it something that you would want to try out for yourself. And if you do, just make sure that you know what you're dealing with. The Blue Hole is revered as a dive site, but due to what the water's like and the inhabitants of the hole, it's recommended that you have some serious diving experience before simply jumping in. Now, sadly, there are many people who do dive in without enough experience, and the results are indeed and can be fatal. Furthermore, due to the clarity of the water, which is literally defined as being crystal clear, you would think that you're so close to something but instead be so far away, and that's going to hurt you on the back end of your dive when your air reserves aren't exactly there anymore. Finally, as mentioned before, there are sharks, and while they're not the most mean of the species, they can and will attack you, and that can hurt your air supply and your equipment. Now, I'm not saying that you can't dive there, I just want to be careful if you try. Now it's time for today's topic. In April 2025, a deep-sea expedition team from OceanGate Pacific, while surveying an unexplored ridge near the western edge of the Mariana Trench, stumbled upon what appears to be a gigantic, sword-like structure embedded in the seabed. Rising over 30 feet from the ocean floor, the formation is jagged and curved, with a texture that resembles fossilized bone or calcified cartilage. At first, the divers assumed it was a rock outcrop, but upon closer inspection, they noticed rows of evenly spaced serrations, almost like the teeth of a prehistoric shark, fused into a massive blade-like structure. Samples were immediately sent to marine biology labs in Tokyo and Seattle. Initial testing revealed the material contains a unique protein matrix found only in marine vertebrates, leading researchers to believe the structure could be the fossilized jaw or appendage of a previously unknown megafaunal predator, possibly dating back over 20 million years. There are no records of any shark or marine reptile with such a weapon-like feature. Some scientists propose it may have been used in deep ocean combat or mating rituals, while others speculate it belonged to an entirely lost evolutionary branch. The mystery remains unsolved, but one thing is certain. We've only scratched the surface of what's lurking below. Number 15. The Nautilus Reef. What a man discovered underwater shocked the whole world. When you first hear that name, you might honestly have a very oceanic view of things. After all, Nautilus is the name that's been given to all sorts of ships over the years, and reefs are something that many sea creatures do call home. So all in all, it seems like something you would find in the ocean, right? Well, yes and no. The real creepiness factor here is that how far video gamers will go to pay tribute to one of their favorite video game characters. The Nautilus Project, more commonly known as the Nautilus Reef, was a League of Legends, one of the most popular video games ever, champion-themed artificial reef which resides at Moreton Bay off the coast of Queensland, Australia. It was a project donated by fans of the OCE region with the donors' names engraved in a plaque down below the ocean's depths. Yes, for real, League of Legends players actually put money together to have a statue made of the champion known as Nautilus and then put it in the water so that his presence is there? Well, yeah, let's say that his presence is there. Could become an artificial reef for sea creatures. Now, for the record, there are plenty of people who make artificial reefs for fish, but they're a bit more basic than this. It also should be noted that in just over a year, the entire structure was covered in the natural makings of reefs due to the animals living there, and it also included covering up the plaque with all of their names. Plus, do you think that fish even know what League of Legends is? If they do, then we're probably all doomed. Number 14. Ghost Fleet of Truck Lagoon. One of the things that most people would honestly expect to find in the waters of the world are shipwrecks, but if you think about it, between natural events like storms or giant waves or even the wars that have been fought on the water, boats do tend to sink in the oceans and are found by divers later on. The difference in regards to the Ghost Fleet of Truck Lagoon is that this isn't just one ship, it's a literal fleet of them from a key point in the Second World War. Specifically, you're going to find this ghost fleet near the Caroline Islands in the South Pacific. At one point in time in the Second World War, this was home base for the Japanese main fleet of warships, also known as the Imperial Fleet. So what exactly happened to them? Well, that would be Operation Hailstorm, which many would go on to refer as the Japanese Pearl Harbor due to the destruction that would be caused to the fleet at the time. Hundreds of Japanese ships still very much line the waters of Truck Lagoon, and while that was a tragedy of the time, it's turned into something both creepy and special now. Creepy because it's still a lot of ships just laying there in the water, but it's special because it's now one of the premier dive sites for wrecks of World War II. In fact, Jacques Cousteau himself went in 1969 to film the Lagoon of Lost Ships and explored the wreck-littered lagoon. Many people still go there even to this day. Number 13. SS Thistlegorm. Now we'll go back to another sunken ship, in the case of the SS Thistlegorm. This is not so much creepy as it is revered, to the extent that it's not only hailed as a great dive site, but some refer to it as one of the best wreck dives in the entire world. Apparently people rate such things, which is good to know. And if you didn't know, or you simply slept through history in school like I did, this ship is a World War II shipwreck that's located in the north of the Red Sea in the Strait of Gubal. It's a former 128-meter-long, 420-foot-long, British transport ship that was sunk in 1941 after a German air attack. Sadly, a fate that met many ships in that war, the other major way being sunk by German U-boats. Now, the ship itself would indeed be a great thing to dive in and around due to the history aspect, but what you likely do not realize is what was both on and in that ship when it did go down. I'm talking about 2 locomotives, 2 tanks, army trucks, jeeps, motorbikes, boots, stacks and stacks of rifles, and various spare parts for planes and vehicles. Yes, this thing was absolutely loaded to the gills when it sunk, thus making it a worthy target of the Germans at the time. And now that these things are all strewn across the Red Sea, you can actually go and get an up-close and personal look at them. Apparently it's so robust in what it has to offer that you'll actually need to take 2 separate dives in order just to see it all. Number 12. Icy Finger of Death. Now, if you go to the coldest places in the world and look under the water, you're going to find a series of ice formations known as ice fingers or brinicles. Or, as the title of this entry notes, the Icy Finger of Death, which obviously is a whole lot more dramatic. While this may not seem impressive at first glance, they can grow to be well beyond the length of a human, which on average is over 5 feet tall. The formation of these ice fingers are caused by brine, which is more dense than the waters around it. As it moves down into the water, it gets colder and then freezes, becoming a literal ice statue underneath the water, and as they grow and evolve, they resemble fingers. Now, you wouldn't notice this above the ice caps that they're formed from, but they are there, and they are interesting, which is why many divers have gone below into the freezing waters in order to capture barnacles growing on camera. It's even been featured in the BBC's Frozen Planet. At first, this may seem like a unique form of ice that is a wonder to behold, but while they aren't sentient, they are alive in their own ways, and that also includes the ability to kill. They won't harm humans per se, but they are able to trap fish with their icy touch and then grow around them, making for a new definition of the phrase the cold touch of death. All in all, this is proof that sometimes it's scarier under the water than it is to be above it, because even though these things won't kill a human, would you really want to risk it? Number 11. The Lost City of Heracleion. What's more shocking than finding a massive ship underwater? How about finding an entire city? It's true, and in this case it's a very historical one, as Heracleion was not only an important city to Egypt, it was even called the gateway to the country. It was so important that when it was taken by the oceans, it was then named the Lost Kingdom of Cleopatra. You know it's important when it's named after one of the most famous leaders. So what exactly did sink an entire city? Well, nature. What else? It's widely believed that a mixture of earthquakes, tidal waves, and floods were what forced the city into the water. So in other words, nature did its worst to the city, and eventually the city had enough and just sunk. What's more, this was very much a big find when it was rediscovered, and it wasn't until the year 2000 AD when it would be rediscovered 2 kilometers away from Alexandria. Just as shocking and funny when you think about it, is it was found by accident. Divers had randomly came across a fragment of rock that didn't exactly fit into the surroundings that they were in, and that's when they would go on to find other such fragments, leading to more dives and even more discoveries. As each piece would be found, it painted a more clear picture that they didn't only find a lost piece of stone, but an entire lost city. Obviously, after the city was found, a massive search for the city itself through the use of sonar and other technologies commenced. There have been other sites lost at sea over history, but this one is truly special due to its significance to Egypt at the time, and it proved once more how nature has a way of making things happen. Number 10. Antikythera mechanism. Now I'll talk about taking a trip back in time to look at a piece of technology that arguably shouldn't have existed when it did. But why is that? Because I'm talking about computers, specifically a device that was dubbed an ancient computer, which might paint different pictures in your head depending on who you are. But in the case of the device known as the Antikythera mechanism, it's something that honestly defies belief, as this ancient computer dates back to the 200 BCE era, near Greece, and obviously that was a long time before any true computers were even contemplated. In the year 1900, a shipwreck would be found near the Greek island of Antikythera. In the wreckage, they would discover an old analog computer, which meant that they used the device to determine things that were going to happen in the world without the need for electrical parts or even databases of memory to calculate all the things. Specifically, this type of computer was used to help trace the positions of the stars as well as determine the next solar or lunar eclipse. A very impressive feat and something that those on the water would want in terms of guidance and knowledge. And if you didn't know, the next type of computer like this wasn't created again until the 14th century, which is quite a gap. And thus, it's a creepy yet intriguing mystery. How did the Greeks learn not only to make it, but to make it so accurate? Nobody really knows, and that's why people keep on studying it. As for where the mechanism is now, you'll find it in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. Number 9. Yonaguni Monument. To be clear, this isn't a city or a town that was found in the water, but rather a monument in the waters just off of Okinawa, Japan. On its own, it wouldn't really be the most creepy of things. However, when you realize the mystery and controversy that surrounds it, you get an entirely different story. The Yonaguni Monument would be found on accident by a diver in the 1980s, and believe it or not, he was actually trying to research hammerhead sharks, proving that he is very brave when he came upon this entity. And this is where the controversy comes in, because for decades that would follow, multiple respected people in the scientific community had studied the Yonaguni Monument, and they can't agree on what it is. One side of the argument is that this was a man-made structure, possibly made by ancient civilizations at one point in time before it sank beneath the waves. The other side of the argument, though, is that this was made by nature, which for the record is not as odd as it may sound. That over the course of time, the waves and waters of the ocean and so on, the monument was formed. No one can really agree on it, and what's more, both sides claim that they have evidence that proves their side of things. It's honestly a little bit creepy to think that something massive is known about, and yet we can't really seem to truly determine what it actually is. So despite it being the find of the century, according to some, nobody honestly knows what that find is going to turn out to be. Number 8. Giant eyeball. To be clear here, giant is in the context of the fact that it's bigger than a human eyeball, but it's from an animal. So take that into consideration. Regardless, this occurred back in 2012 when this giant eyeball washed up on the beaches of Florida. Naturally, a whole lot of people were weirded out by this because honestly, we all would be. Just think about it. It's not the carcass of an animal, which happened to wash up on the beaches all the time. It's just an eyeball. One singular eyeball by itself. Was the creature that it was attached to attacked, and this is what was cut out? Or perhaps this is as simple as a fish dying in the water, and then the eye just happened to pop out due to decomposition. Nobody really knows. But what is known is the thing is really super creepy. Number 7. Underwater train wreck. The phrase train wreck obviously implies something big going wrong in the most spectacular of ways possible. So hearing that there was an underwater train wreck is definitely going to get you think about what happened. But to be clear, I'm being literal in this sense. It's a literal train wreck that you'll be able to find underwater near New Jersey. The mystery and curiosity of this train wreck is the fact that no one knows how it happened or why the train carts are there at all. To be clear, it isn't a whole train that's underwater, but it's a set of 2 carts that have been underwater for well over 100 years at this point, and nobody knows how they're there. What's more, despite the carts having ID numbers, no one can seem to find where they came from or went until they were eventually found in the water. This is one creepy mystery that might never get solved. Number 6. Atlit Yam. Now, if you think the places that I've shown you are the oldest to find themselves underwater, you're underestimating Mother Nature quite a bit. For proof of this, you have to look at Atlit Yam. This wasn't a city that was sunk, but was actually a village. That in and of itself wouldn't be all that impressive, except for the fact that Atlit Yam was Neolithic, said to have existed sometime between 6900 and 6300 BCE. What makes this site even more fascinating is the level of preservation, with stone structures, wells, and even tools still intact despite being submerged for thousands of years. Archaeologists have also uncovered evidence of advanced agricultural practices, including the cultivation of grains, which was remarkable for its time. Even more intriguing is the discovery of a stone circle at the site, which some believe may have had ritualistic or ceremonial significance. These findings paint a vivid picture of a thriving community that was far more sophisticated than one might expect from such an ancient era. That obviously makes it much older than many of the other empires that we've already talked about. Furthermore, it's a place where there are many artifacts of that age, and thus makes it a perfect place for archaeological discovery. This includes finding the remains of those that had once lived there via their graveyards, showing the customs of burials even back then. Sites like these are creepy, but they're also a natural part of history and must be studied. Number 5. Turtle graveyard. From something controversial to something rather depressing, I'll now talk about a turtle graveyard. Now don't make that face at me. I literally just told you that this would be a depressing thing. Back in the early 1980s, the famous ocean explorer Captain Jacques Cousteau and his team would pay a visit to the islands of Sipadan off the coast of Borneo to film a documentary about its crystalline waters. And here's where things take a turn, because as they were exploring the waters, they found themselves inside of a mysterious cave, one that just so happened to have the bones of a whole lot of dead turtles within. The sight was haunting, with the remains of turtles scattered across the cave floor, some still eerily intact as if frozen in time. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant marine life outside, making the cave feel like a somber, forgotten tomb. The team noted how the cave's narrow passages and sudden turns could easily disorient even experienced divers, let alone turtles. This only added to the tragedy, as it became clear that the turtles likely entered the cave out of curiosity, unaware of the danger that awaited them. Even Cousteau was surprised by this, and suggested at the time that the reason for the graveyard was that the turtles merely went there to die in peace. Sadly, the truth of the matter was eventually revealed, and it would be a whole lot darker. You see, turtles would enter the cave, but then they would get lost in the maze of tunnels that were within it, and then they couldn't get out, and then they drowned. To further make sense of this, it should be noted that the entrance to the cave actually isn't that deep underwater, so it's something that turtles would spot and naturally be inclined to explore. That is until they realize all too late that the cave is many hundreds of meters deep, and as a result they could get lost and die in there. And being that this was a full-on graveyard of bones, many turtles did lose their lives to the cave. Number 4. Sunken city of Cuba. Given the prominence of Cuba, for better and for worse, you might find it odd that this island nation has a sunken city, but yet it does. In the early 2000s, Some scuba divers were out doing some studies when their sonar picked up structures about 600 meters, 2,000 feet, below sea level that should not have been there. When they went down deeper to look, they would find structures that indeed looked like buildings, and thus being man-made. What made this discovery even more puzzling was the precision of the structures, with some resembling pyramids and geometric patterns that seemed far too advanced for their supposed age. Some researchers speculated that this could be evidence of a lost civilization, possibly even predating known human history. Others suggested that the city might have been submerged due to a catastrophic event, such as an earthquake or rising sea levels, thousands of years ago. The sheer depth at which the structures were found only added to the mystery, as it would have taken an extraordinary amount of time for them to sink that far. But not unlike a certain other monument, many people couldn't actually decide what they were, and when they were created. The depths that they were found in seemed to indicate one thing, but then the history of the world as we knew it indicated another. Eventually, the talk of the city was dubbed to be a kind of hoax, even though it most assuredly was not. It just goes to show you that when you don't get the answers on something, people are going to jump to whatever conclusion they feel like. Number 3. Purple orb. Well, that doesn't sound ominous, does it? Purple orb. This would take place off the coast of California back in 2016, where a group of scientists were in a submarine doing some research, and their lights hit something in a crack in a rock wall. Something appeared to glow when the light shined on it. That thing was a purple orb, and as scientists aboard the craft would note, they had no idea what it was at first. The orb's smooth, almost translucent surface gave it an otherworldly appearance, sparking immediate curiosity. Some of the researchers speculated it could be a previously undiscovered species, while others wondered if it might be a rare deep-sea organism adapted to extreme conditions. Its vibrant purple hue stood out starkly against the muted tones of the ocean floor, making it even more mysterious. The team quickly realized they had stumbled upon something truly unique, and they were eager to study it further. So much so, that they literally vacuumed it onto the ship, and it was there that the entity further baffled them by unfolding into 2 parts. This would lead them to believe it was some kind of unique mollusk, one that literally walks around on 1 foot. As for why it glowed, that was simply a trick of the light, as they apparently said. Number 2. Toxic underwater river. Something you might be a little surprised at, though, is that there's a full-on underwater river in the ocean. Many of them, in fact, and ones that have their own currents and everything. However, in the Yucatan Peninsula, you'll find sinkholes like the Cenote Angelita, which caused certain underwater rivers to form. What makes these rivers even more fascinating is how they appear visually, almost like a flowing, murky river within the crystal-clear water surrounding it. Divers have described the experience as surreal, as if they're swimming through 2 entirely different worlds layered on top of each other. The hydrogen sulfide layer creates an eerie, fog-like effect, making it difficult to see and adding to the danger. Some have even compared the sight to something out of a science fiction movie, with the river seemingly defying the laws of nature. One of which is surrounded by gas, hydrogen sulfide to be exact. And if you don't know, if divers down there actually tried to breathe in the water with the gas inside of it, they would die. Equally as ominous and creepy is that this isn't just a thin layer you can actually avoid, it's 3 meters, 10 feet thick, which means that you have to be really careful as you dive through it, as one malfunction could mean your doom. Why nature decided to form such a combination is well beyond me. Number 1. Baltic Sea anomaly. Easily one of the most famous and perhaps infamous of things to ever be found beneath the waves, the Baltic Sea anomaly is a mysterious structure that was found 90 meters, 300 feet, below in the Baltic Sea by divers in the year 2011. Yes, the thing has been around for a while quite clearly, yet we've only found it in 2011. If it does look familiar, you're not the only people to say that, as the anomaly looks very much like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Adding to the intrigue, its surface appears unnaturally smooth in some areas, almost as if it was deliberately crafted. Some researchers have even suggested that it could be a remnant of an ancient civilization, possibly a structure that was submerged over thousands of years. Others, however, argue that it might be a rare geological formation, shaped by glacial activity during the Ice Age. Despite these theories, the lack of definitive evidence has only fueled speculation and wild theories about its origins. Even though this was found almost 3 decades after the original movies and the original ship was created, there are still all sorts of mysteries about what it is, what it isn't, what it's doing there, and there are claims that electronic devices actually shut down around it, further speculating that it could be a true alien craft. What's more, there's no clear clues as to who might have made it, and so the mystery continues on. That wraps up everything from the mysterious depths of the ocean and the incredible discoveries people have made there. Were any of these finds surprising or even a little unsettling to you? Do you think there are still more bizarre and fascinating things waiting to be uncovered in the ocean's depths? If I missed anything that should have been on this list, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other awesome videos popping up on your screen, and I'll catch you next time.